All right. Good morning, everybody. So we get 2-for-1 special today. Looks like we've gotten a consultation request. So go ahead and get into this. Hi, Bull. My question for you is, do you find it hard to date knowing you may not even be in Hawaii in a year? I feel like I've been kind of hesitant to date ever since getting a new job assignment in place because I am not sure if I'll stay out here in the long term. This is a really good question. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this. Check the audio. The audio is good, so put that back in there. Pull out my notes. So we'll talk dating. This is, I believe, the first dating consultation I've gotten in a minute, so that'll be kind of fun. Go ahead and pull chat up right here real quick. Give me 1 second. Nice. Okay. Got chat right there. So, dating when you're in a transitory stage of your life. Be that I'm gonna do this two ways. It's not just gonna be dating when you know you might move. It's gonna be dating when you know you might move and when you're new in a place, because I'm new here. How long I will stay here is a question mark. I like it here a lot. There's 95% of the time I love living here. The other 5% drives me nuts. It's mostly related to the government here, but well, what are you gonna do? So when it comes to dating, I'm gonna start with dating when you're new to a place, and then I'm gonna answer your question, dating when you may not stay in a place after that. Because they're linked, they're hand in hand. Dating when you're new in a place. The first 6 months you move to a place, unless you know you're going to be there for less than a year, I wouldn't bother. You're gonna be too busy setting up your new life, finding housing, getting your work on point, getting used to the new schedule, getting used to the way of life that may be very different from your previous locale. For instance, right here in Hawaii, I live very technically in the Honolulu metro area, right? So I've moved from a very small town to a very big city. At least to me, it's a very big city. So because of that, it's been a little bit of an adjustment, trying to learn. It's very different politically here. It is culturally very different. Hawaii, of course, is very different from the rest of the United States in this regard, but it's also very different in terms of urban to rural. So there's a lot of adjustments, I think, within the first 6 months that you're going to make in general when you're new to a place. I would say, for the most part, unless you've got a very good reason to keep moving in less than 2 to 3 years' time, you're best off not, just because there's, in most places, enough to do to enjoy being in a place for about 2 to 3 years minimum. I've found that, and I've lived in some of what most people would consider the most undesirable parts of the country. So, as a new kid in town, I would say, focus on yourself and getting your life set up correctly for the first 3 to 6 months. It's going to vary from person to person and place to place. But as the new kid in town, once you're done that, by the 3 to 6 month the 3 to 6 month mark, by the time you move to a new place, you'll know your neighborhood a little bit. You'll know your job at least a little bit better. You should be getting into something of a routine or something of a rhythm, right? So once you get to that point, that's when you can really start looking at the dating market in general. Now, if you're going to be in a place for like less than a year, I would say don't even bother with anything more than just fucking around. And even I'm not a huge fan of casual flings, so I wouldn't even bother with that. I would just say don't bother in that regard. But if you're the kind of person who likes hookups and such, well, there you go. Go for that. Now, getting into the meat of what you're asking for. When you know you're not going to be in a place long term. So you're saying, whether or not I know I will not be in Hawaii long term. That's true. I may not. But there's a chance I will be. So my situation is probably a bit different than yours, right? I've got a major modeling show in New York City coming up in February, right? With a modeling show in New York City, of all regards, that is going to give me access to a dating pool that is very unique. It's going to be very special. It's going to give me access to interacting with higher quality people to date than one would otherwise get. And that has nothing to do with the location being New York City. It has everything to do with it being one of the most prestigious fashion shows in a town that really cares about that. So that's going to put me on the map. And as a result of that, it's going to boost my perception, at least a little bit, in the modeling world. Probably going to see a lot more interest in the channel, a lot more interest in the Instagram and all that stuff. And it seems to me like, God, anymore, Instagram is almost a dating app in and of itself, which is something I'm not a fan of about the platform, but I can't change that. How this relates to you. You have been in a place fairly recently, making sure on the email, you got a new job assignment in what I would say is generally a pretty good dating market. Knowing your gender, trying to keep you vague here. For you and your situation, I think you've got a very good dating market there. Obviously, it's a big place. All right, you know, I'm not going to talk. It's a big enough place to where I'm comfortable saying it's California. So California, even within California, you've got vastly different dating markets, right? The dating market in Los Angeles is not the same as the dating market in Bakersfield, for instance. So I would say, with that in mind, assuming you're in a major metro area in California, and it's not Bakersfield, because I don't think you are. I believe you're in a bigger one than that. I don't know exactly, but I'm guessing. The odds, statistically speaking, the odds are it's probably, you know, the Bay Area, LA, or San Diego, maybe Sacramento. Those are the big cities in California. If that's the case, you've got a pretty good dating market. Now, if you're saying you've been kind of hesitant to date since you got the new one, and you're saying you're not going to stay out here long term. So this is where you need to look at what are your desires when it comes to dating, right? Are you dating for a purpose? And what is your market value? And you got to know both of those factors. And a lot of people don't like the term dating market or sexual market. Tough. Unfortunately, a lot of dating nowadays is very much visually based, and it's going to be based on how attractive you look. So when it comes to desires, what are you looking for here? Are you looking for a short-term fling, right? If you're just looking to fuck around, then who cares? If you're not looking for anything serious, you just want casual relationships, then great. It doesn't matter when and where you move. Hell, if you're moving out and you know you're moving out, that may be the best time because it gives you a natural out from developing any real deep feelings, or for, you know, that person, if they develop deep feelings, well, they knew you were leaving, so you don't have to feel bad about it if, you know, they're real broken up that you're going. I had a friend of mine here who was active duty Navy, and he had a really nice relationship kind of going on with this girl here in Hawaii, but he knew his term was ending here and he was shipping out for a new location. So, you know, he said that at the beginning. Girl understood it. They said, well, it's going to be casual, and they had a lot of fun. You know, if you just want a casual fling like that, you just want to hook up, being transitory it's like a life hack. It gives you a natural out, and it allows you to be a bit more of a player if that's what you want. Now, if your desire is for something more serious, and I'm guessing based on the way you wrote this message, the way you wrote this consultation request that it is, that becomes a bit trickier. You need to balance a couple of things then. First thing is, do you want to stay in a place where I mean, it sounds like based on your profession, and I'm not going to give details on that, it sounds to me like you're going to have some choice in where you stay. It doesn't sound like you're going to get forced out. So it sounds like maybe more of a I'd rather not live in California long term, which is fair. The question then becomes, right, with the dating market, if you're looking for something more serious, you got to start evaluating, okay, can I find someone with the same life values? If you know you want to exit California, good news for you is that there are a lot of people who feel the same way. And for whatever reason, right, especially if you want to have a family, California is not a great place to raise one right now. The cost of living, particularly the cost of housing, is very high. And while you can life hack that as a single person or as a young couple, when you start having kids, that becomes progressively more difficult. Now, can you raise children in an apartment? Absolutely. People in New York do it. People in Japan do it. But is it as generally as easy to do as a separated single family house? And is it as cost effective? No. Right. This is why a lot of people who want families have moved to places like Florida, Texas, and in general the Sun Belt, where there are new suburban developments that, at least on the surface, I'm not going to get into infrastructure and all that on this particular consultation. It's perceived as more family friendly, even if it isn't necessarily. So, if you're looking for something long term, I would keep that in mind. I would be very upfront about what your desires are. And in general, that's just a good practice when you're dating. If you're not looking for something serious, if you're looking for something casual, say so up front. It eliminates drama later down the road. If you're looking for something serious, say that up front. A lot of partners will, if you say that up front, it's going to filter out a lot of the people looking for a cheap hookup, and it's also going to be a green flag to the people looking for a serious relationship. So I would say it's going to be dependent, right, on what your desires are and how you want to match that. So while my experience here isn't going to quite be the same, it's also going to be dependent on your value in the market. So what do I mean by that, right? If you are an 8 or a 9, you're going to be able to have more options and therefore get something closer to what you want than if you're average. So if you know you're average, and you have to have a hard and honest conversation about that with yourself. If you are, it's not an easy one. But the nice thing is, I think the way I'd like to say this is almost everyone can become a 7. I don't think everyone can become a 10, but I think most people can become at least a 7. All being a 7 requires is you're in decent shape, you are supporting yourself, right? You've got a job and a future. Everyone can get to at least the point of being a 7. That's just my opinion. Unfortunately, the United States has an over 40% obesity rate on average. So if the average person overweight is even higher, what that means is if you are in shape, you're not fat, you're already statistically likely to be above average. So that one's very, very easy, and it's very, very controllable. And if you're saying, oh, I can't control that, well, no, what it means is you like eating food and not working out more than you like the potential of having a partner, right? You can say big is beautiful until the cows come home, but if the members of the opposite, or if you're into that same sex, don't feel the same way, reality is you can't bend reality to your laziness, okay? That's just not how that works, or towards your gluttony, right? I want an 8-pack. Well, I can't. The laws of thermodynamics would suggest that I need to eat fewer calories then. It sucks, but it is what it is. You can't bend the laws of reality to your whims. That's just not realistic. So in that regard, you have to analyze yourself, right? You can use statistical averages to figure this out. Average man, if you're male, right? Height. We're gonna operate under the assumption that you're straight, because the majority of people are straight. If you're a male, right? Girls care about height. They do. There's a reason one of the most popular filters on every dating app is 6 foot tall, which is a really stupid filter, to be honest, because statistically that's 15% of American men. God help you if you live out here, it's less than 10, because Hawaii, with a very large Asian population, tends to be shorter. I believe it's the shortest state on average. I think the average Hawaii resident's like 5'6", and then the average American is 5'9". So, right, statistically speaking, 85% of people are below 6 feet tall. So if you're over 6 feet tall, that's a natural advantage. I will grant, right? You don't generally control that. I'm 6'3". It's definitely a benefit. But being in shape, you can 100% control that. You can get a six-pack no matter who you are. It's not easy, but it can be done. If you're female, right, it's the same principle. I promise you, what guys like are, most guys don't chase fat chicks. I'm sorry, they just don't. Most guys are looking for an attractive curve, a little bit of curves, right? If you want, right, a really good looking booty, how do you want to do that? Well, you're going to want to hit the squat rack, and don't use some sissy weights, right? Don't just use the bar, right? If you can do 20, 25 reps with no real issues on the squat rack, go up weight. Same thing with leg press. Start hitting heavier weights. I promise you, you're not going to look like She-Hulk if you hit the weights heavy. It's just your genetics. You do not have enough testosterone in your body to get to that point, unless you start using, testosterone supplements, or you start taking steroids. You're not going to look right. You're not going to look like this if you're female. But if you do lift and you're female, you'll get that really nice athletic curvy body that a lot of guys just absolutely fawn over. So working out, no matter who you are, definitely worth doing. And controlling your diet. And that requires willpower. It's not easy. I get hungry all the fucking time. And in fact, I spend probably a larger percentage of my time hungry than full. It's a reality of the situation. So first off, improve what you can, right? Stoicism, control what you can. But then beyond that, once you've gotten to that point, again, I think everyone can be a 7. Analyze yourself, and you'll know, depending on what kind of people you match up with on dating apps, or if you don't like the apps, if you're female, what kind of guys approach you in bars? If you're male, what kind of girls respond positively? If you go out to a bar or a club and you start talking to them, or the beach, or what have you. Unfortunately, nowadays, right, the office is a no-go. Thanks to the Me Too movement and to modern day feminism, a lot of the avenues in which men have historically asked women out are no longer in play. And this is one where I think the fairer sex, so to speak, needs to step up to the plate. It's the 21st century. You can ask a guy out too. No, it's not easy. Deal with it. You wanted equality. You got it. Men, all too often anymore, men are too scared to ask you out because they're scared of getting labeled a creep, which, due to the presence of social media, that's a fair thing to be scared of. Now, it shouldn't stop men, but it's going to. So if you like a guy and you're female, you're going to need to make that first move. The nice thing with social media is you can find out a lot about a person if you do a little digging, right? If you wanted to try and date me, for instance, and I'm not trying to make this all about myself, but you could figure out, okay, this guy is nuclear engineer for a living, so he's got stable income. This guy is 6'3". He's in good physical shape. Great. Okay, those are all positives. Negatives, okay. He is pretty frugal, right? A lot of people get turned off by frugality. Now, some people think that's a huge green flag. You want to find compatibility there. And then once you've kind of found the kind of people that fit both the categories of someone you want and someone you can reasonably get based on your own attractiveness, based on what you bring to the table. And you should be asking yourself that all the time, whether or not you're male or female. What do I bring to the table, right? If I ask myself that, what do I bring to the table? Stable salary, physical fitness. I can talk about a variety of subjects. I have a wide variety of interests. I like to learn. I like to try new things. I'm pretty open-minded. You know, you can say that about yourself, right? If you're artsy, right? If you're very good cook, if you're very flexible, if you're good in bed, all of those things apply. You have to be very, very honest and ask that for yourself. Once you've done that, you can say, okay, I'm looking for a serious relationship. I don't know what my future is going to be, but I found this person that I've done some research on. I'd like to ask him out. Well, let's go ahead and assume he says yes. You have your first date and things go well. Okay? Or you assume she says yes, you have your first date and things go well. Now you get to the point of, well, if they don't know, you got to tell them, be like, hey, I'm not, you know, this is where you start asking the other person. This is where you do a lot more listening at first than you do speaking about yourself. You do a lot of listening. You say, you know, what are your plans for the future? What dreams long-term or desires do you have? And this is really critical. If you're looking for a family, right, the answer you're going to want to hear is, oh, I'd like to have kids someday, or I'd like to settle down and raise a family someday, something along those lines. Then you can ask, you know, you can do the same thing about career. Well, what's your career plans look like? You know, oh, I want to climb the ladder at my current company, or, oh, well, I like my job, but I could definitely find another one, or I'm looking to switch industries, or my job sucks, I'm thinking about retraining. You can take that information, analyze it, piece it together and say, okay, this person is probably a lot more open to moving than not, or this person is probably very keen to stay where they are. And here's a great example. One of my ex-girlfriends, very, very sweet girl. I think she's married with kids now, which makes me very happy because that's what she wanted to stay in her chunk of Texas. And I did not want to do that. I knew I would get bored. And we had some other divergences where we started dating in college. And I think the reason we kept dating for so long was because we both got engineering degrees at Texas A&M, and that's not easy to do. Especially, right, I got a mechanical degree. She got a degree in something even harder. In terms of rankings, it was A&M's a top 5 school in that field. I'm not going to say too much more for privacy reasons, but we're both very intelligent in that regard. We were both successful at the beginning stages of our careers, but she wanted to settle down in that chunk of northern or northeastern Texas and have a house and have kids. And at the age of, what was I then, 23, 24, I was too young for that. I knew I didn't want that, and I also didn't like my job coming out of college. Now, I did it because it's your first job, you got to take your lumps, but I knew I was going to want to move. I wasn't going to want to stay and plant roots long term. So, and this is one where I will look back, I think I could have done better here. I think this is a failure on my part. I should have ended the relationship sooner because I knew that was going to happen. But, you know, we made it work for a time, and I think when I eventually realized that, when you realize there is a long-term discrepancy between what you want and what the other person wants, that's irreconcilable differences. And that's where you need to have a very serious conversation. Say, I want X, you want Y. These two things can't coexist. So I'd like to end it. And I'd like to end it on a good note. But I'd rather... It's a sign of mutual respect. You can say, I would rather see you be happy and pursue your dreams, right? Which in her case was a family and kids, with someone else than you try to tie yourself to what I want to do and not achieve your own dreams. That would be selfish. That'd be stringing someone along. And again, I regret not having done that sooner, but it worked out for the end. She's happy in a relationship, I believe. I don't go and check because that just seems like a waste of time to me. And I've enjoyed my own voyage, my own journey, and I'm still single, which I'm okay with. So it worked out for the best. So that's about where I would go with it, where you need to, if you're moving out or if you're thinking about moving out, you need to just have that conversation with a serious partner. And if they're, if they're showing interest in you, if they're serious in you, they'll give you an honest and accurate response. And if they lie to you, I mean, that's their problem, because now they're making sacrifices on their life that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise made to keep you. It's not healthy, but the only thing you can do is ask. You can't force someone to tell the truth. You can try as you might, and you should try and be very open about it. Be very cool, be very stoic. Honestly, don't get emotional, right? It may hurt. The answer you may hear is not one you might like, but it's better to do that than to have someone sacrifice their life's dreams to make a relationship work that, all it's going to do is build resentment. And then that's going to cause problems down the road. God forbid, you have the family and you move out and it's really draining on this other person and they're going to want a divorce. And that's the most tragic thing, because then that hurts the kids, which I'm very strongly against divorce. You shouldn't do it unless you really, there had better be a damn good reason. Don't just divorce because you're unhappy. You need to work through issues. That's the whole point of marriage. But if you're looking for a serious partner, be ready to have serious conversations. I guess that would be my key takeaway here. If you're looking to be casual, this doesn't matter as much. Have your flings, enjoy. If you move, you move. If you don't, whatever. Now, if you do a little bit too much tomcatting, you might become seen as a player if you're male, or as a slut if you're female. That's the double standard, and men get the long end of the stick on that one, to quote Hank Hill, or paraphrase Hank Hill. It is what it is. But if you know you're going to move and you want something serious, you have to be able to have that conversation, difficult though it may be. So that is pretty much the answer I can give you towards this question. Is there anything else in the email you wanted me to talk about? Do you find it hard to date knowing you may not be in Hawaii in a year? I may well be in Hawaii in a year. That's the thing. I don't know yet. I would say right now, so I listed in my Discord, !Discord if y'all want that and you're not in the channel. Highly recommend it, because it'll give you more access to me. I try to stay pretty current on the Discord. I would say right now, I listed out six potential scenarios that I see as fairly likely for me to do in the next coming year. What has happened is I've basically hit the financial independence number, right? My original goal was my 30th birthday, which is in May of 2025. And I'm still going to keep working until then, just because the stock market is at an all-time high and it keeps hitting higher and higher. Part of me thinks that's a bubble. And if we were to have a correction, that might mean my net worth is now lower than my FI number. So a little more padding isn't a bad thing there. So looking at these outcomes, first one is I go to the New York Fashion Show in February, modeling takes off, and I start getting a bunch of modeling gigs, pays me a ton of money, and I no longer need to work for a living. If this happens, there's a decent but not large chance that I get asked to move to New York or LA. I would prefer to not do that because I really like living here, but it could happen. And if it does, well, that's where we go. It would have to pay well for modeling to take off that way. Number two would be the similar thing, but YouTube takes off. If YouTube takes off, I'm probably staying here because I enjoy being here. And, I'll just make more content for you guys on a day-to-day basis. And, well, that'll be that. So that scenario two is probably, I would say, overwhelmingly likely that I stay here. Scenario three is that modeling's good enough. It's okay. It brings in a little extra income here or there, gives me a nice, paid vacation effectively to, New York in February and Manila in March and potentially Phoenix as well, Tacoma, all these other places, LA. But it's not really enough for me to consider quitting my job from. and I like my job enough to continue doing it, right? This is the benefits to FI. If I do that, well, I'm going to continue stacking income. Even here, I'm saving 60, 65% of my paycheck. Well, okay, great. That means I'm going to be, you know, probably close to millionaire status within the next couple of years. You know, probably would look at working until 2027-ish, the point at which I would be able to withdraw at a very low, very conservative percent of my income, probably even below my expected safe withdrawal rate, and still live here. Because, you know, at that point, I'd probably start looking at sabbaticals or, you know, trying to work part-time. Because, again, I do like the job. It's just, well, I don't really like doing anything for 40 hours a week. If I was lifting for 40 hours a week, I'd hate it, right? Or I'd get tired of it. It's not even that I hate my job. I tolerate my job. Tolerating your job is about as good as it gets. Very, very few people actually ever love their job. If you do, you're very lucky. Tolerating is about the best you can expect for it. So if that were to happen, you know, I'd probably continue working until 2027 or so, and then figure it out from there. But if I'm staying here till 2027, right, you know, and usually 2 to 3 years is about as long as I stay in a place before I get antsy. It's just how I was raised. I was born in a military family, and while I can control that, you know, I can control where I want to go at this point, I generally get to that 2-year point. It's like, I'm still here? Isn't it time to move? So we'll see. But if that's the case, you know, I'd probably exit with, if not being into the 7 digits club, pretty freaking close. It really depends on what the stock market does between now and then. Although with Trump as president, I'm feeling like we might see this bubble carry on a little bit longer. Hard to tell. The final 3 scenarios are a little bit less positive. They're a little bit more worst case. Fourth is that my employer doesn't like these streams or doesn't like my modeling, gives me an ultimatum, you know, and I might fight that for a little while. I really doubt this would happen. I'm union, so I don't think they would fire me over it, but, you know, they may tell me, hey, we want you to quit or something like that. And at that point, well, I'd probably, you know, exit shortly after that point. I don't think that will happen, but I could continue to do modeling at that point. Maybe do an easy part-time job, like be a gym trainer here or something like that, and stay here, you know, maybe cut my expenses a little bit, move into a slightly less nice apartment, maybe consider roommates, whatever, and I'd still have more than enough to be retired here, in effect. I think if I really slashed my expenses here, I could retire on my current amount saved, but it'd be pretty lean, and I don't see a reason to do that. Not quite yet. So could go that route. But again, I think after a few years, I'd get bored. I think, again, I don't get the sense that I am meant to stay in a place and plant roots down. I just don't think that's who I am. The world's a big place, and I've got to explore a lot of it. Number 5 would be sort of the same thing, but modeling in YouTube also goes south for whatever reason. You know, the channel just doesn't really grow, and the modeling opportunities dry up. Nobody likes me, whatever the reason. At that point, well, okay. And then on top of that, I can't find anything to bolster my income here as a gym trainer or whatever. I would be very shocked if that happens, but I could do that, return to South Carolina because I still have a house there, financially independent, and go back to the way things were in 2023, which I'd be just fine with. I'd use that as a home base and do a lot of traveling through the continental US. I'd keep my house as a home base. You know, people, the existing fan base seems to be pretty loyal, could visit me. I don't think that will happen. I think in the coming year, somewhere in 2025, it's going to depend on interest rates. I have a tenant who is taking really good care of the house, is interested in buying it, but we're waiting on interest rates to fall a little bit more. And it works out well for me. If he makes an offer now, okay, great. You know, I'll sell it. But as interest rates go down, housing prices go up, so I can, you know, collect a better reward. And until then, I'm getting rent every month. So I got a win-win scenario there. My house is at 2.375% interest, so I have no incentive to pay it off any faster than I have to. I have no incentive to sell it any faster than I have to, which means I can command a good price. Now, because I've got a tenant in there who wants to buy it, I would sell it to him for a discount because I wouldn't have to work with a realtor. I could avoid all the fees that come with selling a house, which usually are a 5-digit sum. And then the worst case scenario. So job doesn't like the modeling stuff. Modeling and YouTube goes south. I can't find new work here. This is like everything that could go wrong does go wrong, but I've also sold my house. At that point, I probably return back home, buy a van, kit it out, and do the whole van life thing. Explore the US, Canada, Mexico, and maybe try live blogging, do odds and ends jobs where I see fit. Although with van lifing, I know I have enough money to support myself on that, because once you put up the initial capital costs of the van, which I could do for 40 to 50 grand, and it would be a really good rig. That would be a fully kitted out Chevy Express with all the accoutrements, refrigerator, probably solar panels on the roof, everything like that, or a Sprinter. Well, probably not a Sprinter, but a Transit at least. You get to that point. Once you've built that out, the costs of van life, and you can do that for well under 20 grand a year, which even at my current net worth would be easy safe withdrawal rates. And again, God forbid, even in that case, I could find a job as a gym trainer or something like that somewhere as temporary income, or there's always OnlyFans, right? Which at that point, the reason I don't do OnlyFans is because my current job would prevent me from doing that. And my current job pays well enough, it pays me 6 figures, to where OnlyFans does not seem like the reward would be worth the risk. So, by the way, for those of you who are wondering why I don't do that, there you go. There's your answer. I've been asked that a lot. Well, and I've explained it a lot, but one more time for those of you who are hard of hearing, I suppose. Could also tap into that as a source of income if I wanted to start being more charitable, putting up more money to causes I support. There's no reason I couldn't. It's just one where I have to balance risk and reward. But if the day job is gone and I'm done with my current career, that changes the equation quite substantially. At present, I don't see a reason to do that. Anyway, so in those scenarios, scenario 1, probably pretty unlikely. And even then, if it does happen, the odds that I would have to leave here immediately within the next year to 2 years is pretty low. If it really got big, I'd probably need to move to New York or LA. But okay, if that's the case, I go from one excellent dating market to a second excellent dating market, especially LA. Yeah, LA, you got a lot of fake people, but you also got a lot of hot people too. And in general, New York, LA, and here are 3 places where people take their health and fitness very seriously. So, number 2, if YouTube takes off, well, I could stay here as long as I want, which means, I could stay here. And if I found someone, I could develop a longer relationship. And if they wanted to stay here, great. If they didn't want to stay here, great. Doesn't matter. Number 3 would be, modeling is good enough to not go all the way with. I'd still be working here, which means that'd probably keep me here in Hawaii until, 2025, 2026, 2027, who knows? Which means I would have enough time to, I wouldn't be moving in the immediate 6 months to a year, so I could explore long-term dating. I wouldn't find that hard to do. Now, I haven't spent a lot of time dating because, again, I think modeling is going to give me access to a different class, and it's going to allow me to bypass a lot of the trash that most men have to deal with on dating apps. Now, number 4, scenario 4, where I'd continue to do modeling in a part-time job. That would make dating a little bit harder here, but it wouldn't dissuade me from doing it. Hell, I'd probably have more time for it, so that's a pretty decent factor. If I was a gym trainer, God only knows how often is it that if you're a guy, you're a gym trainer or something like that, people are going to hit you up for try to rizz you up, try to date you. It's probably a bit more likely that happens than something of that nature as an engineer. If I head back to South Carolina, well, scenarios 5 and 6 are like worst case scenarios, and I just don't see them happening. If I move back to South Carolina, well, that means I'm basically giving up on dating, because the dating market in rural South Carolina is atrocious. The obesity rate's north of 50%, and I would have to drive to Columbia or Savannah just to find the basic, just to find 5s and 6s. I'm not shallow, but look, not obese is something I am looking for in a dating partner. If that makes me shallow, so be it. But I think that is especially right. It's what do I bring to the table versus what does somebody else bring to the table. Fitness is a huge part of my life. I like going on hikes, like going to the beach, like walking, like all that stuff. If I like that and you like sitting on the couch eating bonbons and potato chips, we're not going to get along. I'm going to get bored and restless, and then I'm not going to want to hang out with you. So, and then the van life thing, if I went the van life route, I'd probably just become Playboy, just do cheap hookups, because if I'm constantly moving like that, there's no value in settling down and raising a family. It'd have to be a really special person at that point. So basically what I've got is a menu with very appealing options from best case to worst case scenario, and I kind of ranked them in that order on my Discord, which, by the way, !Discord if y'all want that. But in general, I'd say for you, you know, if you're having that same situation, figure out what it is you're looking for, tailor your dating strategy towards that, long-term, short-term, serious, cheap fling, and then optimize your own self, right? If you know you could lose 20 pounds, start working on that. Get in the gym and eat better, because it gives you better options. You only get one life. You might as well pursue excellence. And when you pursue excellence, other excellent people tend to pursue you. Not to be witty, but excellence attracts excellence. Iron sharpens iron. If you are someone doing their absolute best in life, living their best life, you're going to attract other people who are doing the same thing, and you will probably hit it off better with them. If you're going through the motions of life and phoning it in, which is, you know, you go to work, you put in your 8 hours, you come home, you watch TV, you go to bed, you repeat, and then you spend your weekends going to the bar, drinking and watching TV, well, expect average or below average results then, because you're an average or a below average person. I know that sounds harsh, but reality is the way it is. You're not going to become a 10 spending all your life watching TV or scrolling on TikTok or drinking at the bar. It's just, those are not attractive qualities in most people. They're just not. So that's about it. That's the long and the short of it. I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed this consultation. For those of you who want to ask me anything else, can be dating, as it was today, can be fitness, can be diet questions. I can tailor a program just for you. We can talk about that. Can be personal finance, right? Again, financially independent gives me a huge menu of options to pick from, and I can't be fucked with. Like, my employer can't threaten me to do shit. First off, because I'm union, but second off, because I can quit and I'd be just fine. I could live for decades without having to work another day in my life if I needed to. I continue to work because I don't hate the job and because it pays well. So achieve financial independence and the world changes immediately. You earn the position of fuck you. Get the position of fuck you. It's so good. I promise you, it is worth every sacrifice. It is worth biking to work. It is worth living in a smaller apartment. It is worth not spending the weekends in the bars, right? A lot of my friends went and, you know, watched a UFC fight and dropped probably $50 to $100 on food and drinks and all that at the bars yesterday. Instead, I went to Foodland, got some little noshes, got myself a couple coconut waters, and chilled on the beach for a fraction of the price, and it was great. 10 out of 10 would recommend. On the sunset, you know, we were out Waianae side, fucking fantastic. It's just, when you achieve financial independence, you have all the power. Your boss can't tell you shit. You can tell your boss too, hey, I have enough money to never work another day in my life. I have enough money to retire. There's even a Dilbert comic about that I've referenced before, where Wally walks into the boss and says, hey boss, I have finally saved up enough money to retire anytime I'd like. And then the boss he says, someone should invent a witty name for that. The boss says, fuck you. And Wally says, perfect, can I use that? And it's true, it's fuck you money. I have achieved the power of fuck you, and I want every single one of y'all to also achieve the power of fuck you. It's so good. I promise you. cut your spending and achieve the power of fuck you. It is so worth it. It's so worth it. Because it gives you options. It gives you freedom. And you can try your best to achieve success in the dating market, but you ultimately can't control that. It requires the affection of someone else, which can happen. And you can do things like, again, working out and all that to make it more likely, but it's ultimately a chance. It's not guaranteed. Freedom, if you work hard enough and you're frugal with your paycheck, freedom is guaranteed. It's entirely within your control. Once you achieve the level of fuck you, it's a fantastic feeling. Anyone can do that. Someone honking their horn out there. Anyway, so if you're looking for any of those other consultations, right, look, my pitch is very simple. How many other nuclear engineer runway models with a six-pack do you know? Okay? Right? This didn't happen by accident. It's that simple. I don't want to sit here and call myself like a top 1% kind of guy, but again, name me another nuclear engineer runway model. I'll wait. askbullmuscle@gmail.com. That's going to be it for me today. Y'all, I will be live, unless I get another consultation, I will be live next Saturday, same time, same place, 5 a.m. Hawaiian Standard Time. Until then, I'll be on the Discord chilling. Probably going to go for a hike today. It's going to be real nice. It's only 9 a.m. That's the benefit to getting up early, too. Early bird catches the worm. Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. It sure does. Anyway, as always, make good decisions. Those good decisions form your actions. Those actions form your habits. Those habits form your values. And those values form an ethos. Could be the guide to start through the rough waters of life. Much love. Come in for the hug. There we go. Make sure I don't got anything else. Nope. All right. Shoots. See y'all around.